Hello, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Bible in 1 Year with the Preacher's Husband. Today we're talking about 1 Kings chapter 1 and 2. Also, we're going to do Psalm 37, 71, and 94. And tomorrow we're going to do Psalm 119, but we're only going to do verses 1 through 88 because this is the longest chapter in the Bible. So we'll get to dig through half of that tomorrow. So 1 Kings, let's get started with a little introduction. Now, there is no author named for the first book of Kings, but Jewish tradition suggests that Jeremiah might have been the possible author. Now, whoever the author was, he states that he drew on earlier primary resources, specifically mentioning the Book of Solomon's Events in chapter 11, verse 41, the historical record of Israel's kings in chapter 14, verse 19, and the historical record of Judah's king in chapter 14, verse 29. Now, 1 Kings covers the years 970 BC to 852 BC. 1st and 2nd Kings originally were one book that was divided into two books later on, sometime around the 2nd century BC is when that happened. Now, a little summary about 1 Kings. It tells the story of the end of David's kingdom, the rise, expansion, and splendor of Solomon's great empire, the division of Israel into the two kingdoms of Judah and Israel after Solomon's death, the beginning of the two nations' representative histories, and the prophetic and miraculous ministry of the prophet Elijah. So let's dive in. Chapter 1, we're going to talk about David's last days because right off the bat, they decided he needed somebody to take care of him. So they found Abishag, the Shunammite, who was this virgin. It was very specific. She had to be a virgin to attend David and be his caregiver at the end of his life. So she did just that. And then we get into Adonijah's bid for the crown. Now, Adonijah was one of David's other sons. He was a son of Haggith. And he kept exalting himself, saying, I will be king, I will be king. And he actually went as far as conspiring with Joab and with Abiathar the priest. And they supported Adonijah. And they actually had a ceremony and announced to everyone that he was going to be the king. Now Nathan and Bathsheba went and appealed to the king about what was going on, and he really didn't know exactly what was going on. But they went and told on him and said, listen, snitch, snitch. So David said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and confirm Solomon as king officially, like double officially. And they did. And he did it in a grand way. He had him announced, he had him anointed, he had the horns blown, he even had Solomon come and sit on David's throne to show everyone that he was the true king going forward. And then Adonijah hears about it. Oh my, and guess what? He actually became very scared. He was fearful of Solomon, and everyone that was supporting him became fearful of Solomon as well. And then David decided to give some dying instructions to Solomon. This is where it really got super interesting for me. Some of the advice that he gave him was to be strong and be a man and keep your obligation to the Lord your God, to walk in his ways and to keep his statutes, commands, ordinances, and decrees. And then he goes on to say, this is so that the Lord will fulfill his promise that he made to me. If your sons guard their ways to walk faithfully before me and with all their heart and all their soul, you will never fail to have a man on the throne of Israel. See, God made him that promise, and God's going to make good on that promise. But it was conditional. And it was conditional on that right there, that the sons, that Solomon and all the kings after him, walk with the Lord and give their heart to God. And he goes on to tell him, act according to your wisdom. That's a huge statement, considering that Solomon is considered to be one of the wisest kings to ever exist on the earth, one of the wisest men to ever exist on the earth. Then Adonijah does something super foolish. He goes to his mom and says, look, you got to ask Solomon to give me this girl as my wife. And who's he asked for a wife? Abishag, the Shunammite lady, the virgin that took care of David when he was dying. And Bathsheba went to Solomon and said, okay, here's what he said. And Solomon was mad. He was super angry. And the king Solomon dispatched Benaiah, and he struck down Adonijah, and he died. Then Abiathar. At this point, Solomon is going to get his revenge. He's going to clean up some house. Abiathar is banished, and he executes Joab for his, I guess you would call it treason, I guess. And then Shimei's banishment. He was banished forever, but he was banished to Jerusalem and was said if he ever left, he would die. Well, guess what? He left and went to go grab a couple of his, slaves that had gone into Gath. And when he came back, Solomon heard about it and said, didn't I tell you not to go anywhere? So there he died. He was executed at that point. Now, that's the end of chapter 2. Chapter 3 we're going to get into later. But right now we're going to move on to the Psalms. Psalm 37. The title in the CSB is Instruction in Wisdom. The title in the King James Version is The Heritage of the Righteous and the Calamity of the Wicked. It says of David, and this to me sounds exactly like the words of David advising Solomon, especially when we get to verse 34 when it says, wait for the Lord and keep his way, and he will exalt you to inherit the land. You will watch when the wicked are destroyed. This is very much David advising Solomon. The next psalm is Psalm 71. Psalm 71, the title in the CSB is God's Help in Old Age. The title in the King James is God, the Rock of Salvation. And this to me did sound like David speaking in his old age to God. Kind of those last requests to God, so to speak. And one thing that stuck out again was he uses music again in verse 22. Therefore, I will praise you with a harp for your faithfulness, my God. I will sing to you with a lyre, Holy One of Israel. That music was important to David throughout his kingship. And in Psalm 94, the Just Judge is the title in the CSB. And the title in the King James is God, the Refuge of the Righteous. The refuge of the righteous. Wow. I think about Adonijah's bid for the throne when I read this, and how verse 20, can a corrupt throne be your ally, a throne that makes evil laws? They band together against the life of the righteous and condemn the innocent to death. But the Lord is my refuge. I don't know why that reminded me of them so much, but it did. So all of these Psalms really went along with our reading today. I hope this has touched you. If it has, click the like button and the subscribe button. And of course, click the little jingle bell so you can get notified the next time I upload a video. And I will see you next time for another episode of The Bible in 1 Year, The Preacher's Husband. See ya.